Welcome to the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club. Screen, the power goes down and we are away by Graves for 5 watts per kilo. Now they back off a little bit, but over the top they go again. Nobody is wanting to make it easy for that group behind. Nobody wants to tow in a big group into the finish. He's working incredibly strongly at the moment now. Mr. X100 goes over onto the top. Bill Graves is there. Safrazad is in the mix for the team as well for that. But they keep that effort going as they go over the top. Mr. X100 at the moment 6.8, 6.9 watts per kilo. He's putting a big dig in. Has gone over the top here. Pressure on here. Anybody got a snap at the moment? These five are incredibly closely matched as they come up this climb. Five absolutely class athletes leading this race out on MyWhoosh at the moment. 53 minutes of racing complete. Now SS goes on the attack. 8 watts per kilo. He's gone again. And at the moment, the damage is being done here. Graves is now on the back foot. And the gap has started to open. It shows who currently only got, Bird's only got 1%. It's about 3% for the chasing group with X100. But look what's in front. And this is make or break. This climb will absolutely tear the legs out. If you're weak now, it's going to show, because this is a big steep kicker coming in. It's not just 1, 2, it goes into double figures here. There, Graves X100 SS coming into that section. You can just see now he's on the pursuit of Bird. The gap is coming down. Is Bird going to be able to hold this to the line? Victory in qualification number 1 goes to Bruce Bird, our first rider into the line. Second rider over the line is Zach Nair of the United States. Philip Graves comes through in 3rd place. An amazing ride here. Congratulations to all of our riders. Everyone who finishes doing an amazing job out there. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. Hello and welcome to the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club. My name's Matt Payne and I'm going to be putting words to all of the race action from our qualifier number 2 of the block of 3 qualifiers that lead us into our final. This is going to be a monster because we have an absolutely brutal climb finishing the end of the ride today. And as you've seen, we've got some great riders, some great athletes, big teams out and hitting on the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club here on the MyWhoosh YouTube channel. And we are looking forward to what could be a really exciting race. Very different in profile to last week's, with last week having a tougher start. So you can see before you, we have 45 kilometers, a total elevation of 904 meters. There are 7 segments along the way where we can time check our riders and see just who is performing and who is in which group, how much those gaps are, they going up or down. But just as importantly, we have 4 kickers on the way through. There are 4 trigger points. They're going to come at just under 8 kilometers. They're going to come sitting at about 15k in, at about 18k, and about 22k in. There are 4 sets of hills prior to the final climb, and you can see the very end of this route. Well, that is when things get very nasty indeed, and it is a brutal climb. The gradient's going right the way up to 13.5%. It's a stepped climb as well, so it's going to suit different riders from last week, and that is going to be very, very telling when we move onto the final section of the route. The rest of the route on the run into that big climb, relatively flat, 0.4, 0.1, but just like in real life, some of those false flats, some of those drags are going to tell. So generally flat run-in. Will the team that took the top honours, the UAE clan team led by Mr. X100, SS Pablo Popovic and Said Safrazad, be the team? They are the guys who we expect to be in there. However, they are going to be challenged all the way. The rider who was absolutely flying, Bruce Bird, our race winner, potentially is going to be looking to try and take them on, but he has limited teammates. Only 1 teammate with him. And we don't have Bush Muller with us, who was in the top 10 last time around. Watch out for the Abus Lacol team. They were 3rd in the team competition. So they sandwich between the UAE Clan team and the Abus Locale team, the Yorkshire Pudding Express, with the one and only Phil Graves in there leading them home in category 2. So the next step down, these are a very dynamic categories. So this is reflective of the riders that are in there. In category 2, watch out for any of the riders from the Abu Dhabi boys. Always going to be interesting. Last time round, it was Hussein Al Rathmeh who took the win in category 2 with Francis Ilipino, who came in second. So the Abu Dhabi boys are getting the second place top spot, going to the UAE Falcons rider. But that, of course, doesn't reflect the strength in depth of the teams, and the big team in there, Italy, powered by Colnago, the teams B and C in that mix. Watch out for those. Last category, our entry category. Salam Bike Shop's got 2 teams in this week, with Team 1 and Team 2 in here. And we've really got to watch out for Romero, Kappa and Balthazar in Team 1. Team 2, well, Romero and Bedo could be challenging, but watch out as well for the CM team. Always very, very strong. Ferinus and the Renegades with numbers, and it's the Renegades who've got 5 riders in the mix, are one of the big numbers in terms of teams in the fight this week. So going to be interesting to see how they are. Don't forget, you can catch up with all of the race results. They are really easy to get. To go onto the MyWhoosh.com website. If you click onto race results on the top menu, that will take you in. You'll be able to see exactly where these riders came. So remember, top team at the moment, UAE Clan team, leading from the Yorkshire Pudding Express, with the Abus Locale team third. That's the positions they were in at the end of last week in qualification 1. Qualification 2, of course, whole different ball game. Our riders have to qualify in at least 2 of the races prior to the main race, and a lot of those riders will be submitting their videos for the verification to make sure that they're in the mix when they come to the racing. Now, we have 30 seconds on the clock to the start. We're riding in with Michael Knudsen. Quick recap for you. Top left-hand side of your screen, you'll see that we have the power. We have the watts kicking out as they sit on the turbo trainers waiting for the go. Heart rate, cadence, power numbers up on the top. We have the time, the distance that they've covered. Right-hand side, your course details, how far on the course they are, whether it's hilly, where they all are relative to each other, and what level these riders are at, how far along in terms of progress they are going. Now, the go goes, and this is going to be quick. We have a basically flat into a downhill start here. This is not for the faint-hearted, because it is going to be flat out on the way out, and you'll see those heart rates going up. You can just see, just jumping in with Tom Harvey at the moment, currently kicking out 440 watts. That's big numbers there. 5 watts per kilo from Tom Harvey. Ross Fawcett, you see on your right-hand side of your screen, just a little bit further back in that mix, but these riders really are trying to push the way in. Now, if you go too hard at the start, you're going to be in big trouble. You're going to go into the red. You're going to go beyond your lactic threshold, and you will be in trouble. Interesting to see Bruce Bird already starting to make his way up towards the front. So is Philip Graves. They're in that chasing group, just a second behind, and Bird really is starting to push now. Remember, Graves and Bird, 2 of the main protagonists last time out, with Bird taking the overall win. He went clear, and he was strong on the final slopes of the Jebel Hafid. The Barren Mountain finish has a steep double figure kicker on the top. However, as we work our way in at the moment, you can just see the experienced riders not going too hard too soon, but Philip Graves definitely wanting to push on here. 0%. It is basically flat on this run in. We have a long, fast run in, and in fact, that first kicker comes in before we get into almost our first segment. The first segment starts at 2 kilometers, 1.2k done. Our 3 riders are just clear, and good to see that we've got Jason Osborne back in the mix for the Danish Pavlova squad, a rider who is always one to watch out for when things get interesting. He's in that leading group, so it's Grace, Ferry, Osborne, Bird, Gavin in there. Ollie Jones is in here. Jones, well, you've got to watch out for Jones on this course. He loves this course, and the reason we know he loves this course, because he is a proven winner out on the course. He is one of those riders who we know can take top spot when it comes to this race. He was the winner the last time that we used this course. And will it be Danish Pavlova rider Ollie Jones, who's maybe going to challenge a little bit further back, just in with Liam Somerville here? Liam riding in the category 2 green jerseys, or yellow jerseys. That is the category 1, our top riders coming into 1.9k, and they are really wanting to put some pressure on here. They are looking to open this up early. They're making the riders behind work. That gap currently sitting at about 6 seconds from our leaders back into the group behind. So this is going to be very, very interesting indeed as we move. This pack of chasing riders is trying to close the gap down. Heading for sprint section, the first of the sectors. This is where we get a good indication of who is on form, who isn't, who's done too much training. Now, I was out on the MyWhoosh's ride on MyWhoosh earlier on in the week, and gotta say, Mr. X100 and SS were riding incredibly strong. Yet again, they dropped me out on the ride. Nothing new there. Their teammate Pablo Papovic of the UAE clan just working there to keep those gaps closed down nicely. Bird Osborne at the moment just continue to push up there now. Tom Harvey behind. You can just see in the green trying to close that gap down. Now, the segments don't count for points. It's not a points competition like you'd see on the track. It is a scratch race. First over the finishing line should be our first rider in, subject of course to the verification where we check how these riders are riding to make sure that everything works correctly, that all of the tech was running smoothly, and that there are no anomalous data in there. If there is anomalous data, then of course that is when the system kicks in, and the AI system will flag it. It'll then get looked at by a real human being, and the commission will look at that and go, is that for real? Is that something that they can do? Is it something that is just caused by a tech issue? And then the rider will either be flagged as, no, it's good to go, they were absolutely superb, or it could be that it is a tech issue where they are then get their race result annulled, potentially disqualified. But that verification happens afterwards. So who's going to be first over the line at the very end of this race? We have to see. We're into sector number 1, the first of our segments here on MyWhoosh, and the riders are continue to push. A really interesting move. This Bird is really wanting to widen this up early. Last time on this course, which is back on the 13th of March, you can see that Bird was coming in. He came in 8th place overall, which for the man who took the win last week, that's definitely really different. It is a big change round. You know, we would expect him to be up there. Both these routes are finished with a big climb. The difference is in the style of that climbing, but at the moment you can see Mitch Ferry right in the mix. So here we go. Time's coming through for our riders. Popovic, we said, was riding strongly. The UAE clan team. He takes the fastest time through that segment. And if you look at those numbers, there's plenty of 6s up there. 6.9 for Popovic in terms of watts per kilo. In terms of outright watts, well, again, big numbers, 483 watts being kicked out. There's a fair few light bulbs in our studio down here as we watch the racing being kicked out. 166, so people right up there. If you look at Badu Yusuf out there riding for the Community Sports Club, 193 is the heart rate. He's really working hard to stay in this group. And got to remember that this is, of course, the first of the segments, so it gives us a really good indicator of where our riders are now. Watch out for the riders who are likely to push on in the later stages. There are no prizes in coming across the line first on sprint segment 1. Key to this is to make sure you work hard now. It looks to me like Popovic wanting to make sure he gets this gap closed down and covers this move for his teammates. The UAE clan team not looking like they've got much in terms of representation up at the front of the race at the moment, and that could be telling as we move on, because they will want to have bodies in there just to make sure they know where they are on the course. A little bit further back, we're just waiting to see the riders continue to push on. You can see Tom Harvey in this later group. The distance shown, 4.9k covered for Harvey, 5.3 for Jason Osborne. 5.4 now it's ticked on, and this leading group is now 5 riders: Mitch Ferry, Bruce Bird, Phil Graves, Jason Osborne, and Pablo Popovic. Popovic, the only rider in there from the UAE Clan team, but Jason Osborne in the mix, and we know that he is likely to be one of those riders who can give everybody else a hard time riding for the Danish Pavlova squad. However, his teammates not up there now. Osborne in there. Bruce Bird is in there for the draft squad. He's got Ross Force a bit further back. And we're just seeing Saeed Safrazad, just the teammate there, just pushing up to try and close that gap down. You can see that distance between. Now, you can see the UAE Clan team starting to push riders in here. We're now going into sector number 2. So sector number 2 comes and kicks in here. And this soon will take us in. This is a really unusual sector in that it drops down and rises up. You can just see at the moment Popovic's numbers, top right-hand side of his screens, minus 1.3, minus 1.4, just kicking in. So they're on this dip down. The speed is picking up. We're at 51 kilometers an hour. And here on MyWhoosh, as you go faster, you've got to increase the power to increase the speed. It's all relative to those aerodynamics, and this is where it pays to have deep rims and an aero bike. We hit the base of this sector, and then it will go back up again. It hardly looks like anything on the map, but we're still on the dip, and now comes this little kicker at the back. So you can just see that the leaders are about to go into that climb. Behind, the chasers are dropping down, carrying that speed, but once you go onto the climb, Phil Graves, left-hand side of your screen here, the speed just dropping off a little bit. That gradient just starts to increase, and now we kick into that final sector. The last 100 meters or so is horrible. It's just going to hurt, and this is a trigger point where you could potentially go clear. You've got the chance to start to make a little bit of gap on people here. We're coming in at 7k, and what you're going to find now is that is going to be a point where people are going to struggle a little bit as we come through. It climbs all the way to 7.8k, and that is critical. So from 6.8 to 7.8k on the course, that is where our riders are climbing, and this is a point where those gaps are going to open in power. It suits a lighter rider because it's uphill. MyWhoosh, recognizing everybody's weight which they're putting in, this is going to be very interesting. Now through number 2, you can see Ferry, Popovic, Osborne, Graves, Bird going through fastest 5 times, not surprising. Behind Simmons, Nair, Fumagalli, Keller, Odlin, all chasing behind. That rounds out the top 10. Mel and Jones behind, and Jones knows this course inside out. Winner on this course last time, a really smart rider. He didn't expend the most watts per kilo across the entire course. In fact, he was nearly 0.9 of a watt per kilo down at 4.8 watts per kilo when he finished this course last time. But Jones, who sits in 12th place on the leaderboard through Desert Sprint 2, is going to be somebody who should be challenged at the front, but we don't know how that form is holding. Now, leaders coming up onto the top, they go over the crest. They are at 7.8k. This is going over the top. Behind, you can see the chasers here. Keller on this climb out, really starting to push. You can see them relative to the rider holding the UAE flag here, the Emirates flag in the hand of the statue as they come up and over, and the chasing group are really having to work hard to go up and over the crest. Meanwhile, our race leaders come up onto our screen, watching Philip Graves, 6.8 watts per kilo. He's really pushing here as we go over the crest to try and maximize the gap back to the riders behind. Now, this is not the most efficient place to sit. Efficient place to sit is positions 2, 3, 4 in a group of 5. Potentially number 5 is a little bit risky. You could get distance very easily, but if you are in the slipstream, you can see the numbers, the watts numbers. For SS, he's in the black, and that means he's not drafting anybody. He's not sitting in the draft. He's not getting any assistance. Phil Graves, green numbers, sat in the draft. He's saving a huge percentage. Every time you get the green numbers, you are saving energy. You're not working as hard as the person that you're sitting behind. However, you've got to rotate through. But SS is now on a push. You can just see at the moment the push coming from SS at the back here. Now, I think there's been some technical issues for SS. A rider who we would expect to be right at the front is back. He's at 4.5k. just chasing on. The leaders are at nearly 9K, and SS is putting some monster watts out here, just trying to close them down. Now, Mr. X100, again at 5.4, 5.5 watts per kill. They've got to chase hard here. They're having to push, and this means that the work is having to be done. They're going to be coming. This is going to be a phenomenal performance if they can come from the back, and you can just see this rider, Mr. X100, he led his team home. He was the most aggressive rider. He wouldn't just be on a red Cole Nargo if he was out there. He'd be getting the red jersey for the aggressive rider. He'd have the red numbers on his back in a real UAE tour. However, at the moment, you can see they are having to chase, and at the moment, the numbers are going to start ticking down. The leaders are coming up into nearly 10K at the moment, and the chase is on behind. Mr. X100, last time out, he came through, remember, right up in the mix, aggressive, fighting, leading his team home. At the front of the race, Phil Graves, he couldn't match him on the slopes, but at the end of the day, SS100 went up the road, and that team worked really well together, the UAE Clan team. At the moment, I think the leaders know that they've got the UAE Clan team on the back foot. The UAE Clan team have sent Popovic up the road, and they've pushed him right into the mix. And as they go through the third of our sprints, this sector 3, it's one which is basically pancake flat, as is sector 4, flat as it comes. Our 5 leaders are through. Fastest time of 1:15. Now we can watch those on the right-hand side of the screen. Brilliant to see the differences here as the chasers start coming here. As they go through, we'll see them ticking the way through. Fumagalli leading this group with Keller, Brun, Simmons, all chasing hard. They're going to appear on the right-hand side of your screen in terms of numbers, and that will give us an indication of what that gap is. You can just see how long it is, and distance. They're making very little time. They're giving away, in fact, the fastest time was Popovic through that sector with a 1:15, and the chasers behind on that sector alone, remember that this sector, it comes out at what is essentially 1 kilometer in 1K. From the leading 5, went through that 1 kilometer, 5 to 6 seconds, depending on which riders you pick, quicker. That is a huge amount of time. So the leaders have got the gap. Chasing group behind has strength in depth. You've got Vidal Mendel in there. Mendel was absolutely flying when we were out and racing last time round. Can he pull that gap down? Can he work with Keller? Can he work with Jones? Can he work with Fumagalli? Can they act together? You've got Brilliant in there, Pirot in that group. They are really working behind Mr. X100. You see this chase behind now. He's making position slowly but surely, and that means that that gap is going to come down, kicking out some phenomenal watts. Now, normally we do see when we're out on a MyWhoosh's ride, our riders start slow and get quicker. Now on the racing, sometimes it will go from the gun, but you've got to pace this right. If you go too fast too soon, you're going to blow yourself into pieces. But the riders behind chasing here, SS and Mr. X100, are having to really push behind it. And it looks like Group 2 that we're focused in on at the moment is the big bunch. We're just in with Ollie Jones, winner of the race last time out. And he is currently sat at 11.2K, 7.9K. So that gap at the moment, it's still in the kilometers mark, but it is starting to come down with the work that's being done behind. So real mix of stories here as we make our way up into the 11.3 kilometer mark. Our next big kicker is going to come at the 14.8 to the 15.1 kilometer. That's our next hill of any significance on this course, and that means that the group have the advantage. The more riders there are, the more advantage there are. So left-hand side, Ollie Jones, group number 2, working hard. Group number 3 are pushing hard. Great ride here by Carlos Carrillo. He's continuing to work hard. We're seeing chasing riders all the way down the course. So remember, this is something you can jump on at any time. MyWhoosh up and running. You can get on there. You can test yourself. You can see exactly where you are. World-class performance plans being written and workouts on there. We've got top-class coaches as well as riders involved, and they are there making sure the riders can put out the best performance possible. Now, here we go. Keller in this group. They're coming in to the start of Desert Sprint number 4. The leading group, though, about 1 minute and 6 up the road, and that means that the chases are going to be a big one behind. You can just see this next group. It's got our Category 2 leader. It's got a 4 Category 3 riders. They're just coming into sprint number 3 here. So they're going to continue to push onwards as they go in underneath the bridge here. So we're in with Karim Sayed at the moment. Karim continuing to work to keep this group rolling. They're going to have to keep that pace high. You can just see a downhill dipper, then it's going to pick up slightly, but it's only fractions of percentages. It is nothing drastic as they come in and through at the moment. The big kicks are going to come a little bit later. So, chasing group number 2 on the road, left-hand side of your screen, right-hand side of your screen, a little bit further back. You can see positions at the moment, 69 out of the 76. This is a group number 2. They are chasing group 1, but they have got work to do. And as you can see, there is strength in depth. We've got Keller, Ferry, Osborne, Graves, Bird, all working hard, trying to push this out, and you can just see behind Perrott, Simmons, and Mendel all working to close the gap down. So really interesting this now as we go through. Bird, Popovich, Ferry, Grace, and Osborne, our fastest 5 riders. 1 minute 20 going through the 1K Desert Sprint number 4. So this is our 4th time check now. Coming into that same time check, here comes Group 2. Group 2 comes through. Oh, go the numbers. Remember, this is positions 6 all the way to 12. As they go through, what are they giving away? Well, they're giving away something in the region of 10 to 11 seconds. So we're seeing huge gaps coming out there between Group 1 and Group number 2, and that is massive when it comes to the road. So riding in with Group number 2 at the moment, 1 minute, 18 seconds down on our leaders. Bird, Popovich, Osborne, Grace, and Ferry. Popovich for the Clan team, and Grace in there for the Yorkshire Pudding Express. Those 5 already have ripped up the road. Group number 2 chasing hard behind. Keller in that pack behind them. A little further back, we're just watching the progress of the riders chasing on behind. And today, definitely a fast start, really kicking in. So, Group number 2 currently at 13.6 kilometres. The chase is on behind now. SS is currently up into 75th, so he's closed some positions down here. Going to make another position going past one of our riders a little further back in the field, past that Category 3 rider. So he's going to move up in positions, but really is having to work hard to try and close those gaps down. Now, it's a big effort from the back. This is where our riders have to show what they're made of. When you have a late start, when there's a tech issue, you can't get onto that line when you want to, whether you've got on the bike, whether you get a puncture in when you're out and racing on the road, whether it is because you've got the wrong gearing on, whether the start gate doesn't work properly if you're on the track. All disciplines have technical issues, which mean that you can not make it to start, and you can turn up late as well. There's plenty of us who've done that, but looks like tech issues for at least SS and Mr. X100 means they are not on that start line. And when it won't go, because we would expect them to be in Group 1, never mind this, which is Group number 2. So just ride it in with Keller at the moment. So Group 2, this is the group that are working to keep that gap down to Group number 1. They want to be in touching distance when they go on the climb. 1 minute seems to have opened up very quickly between nearly 1.5 minutes. And Graves at the moment has got the gap. He's pushing on here from Osborne, from Ferry, Popovich, and co at the moment. So is Philip Graves wanting to make this top spot? He's got a work cut out because he's got to go into that final climb. Remember, when we came up at the finish last time around, Graves was going well, but he couldn't match the pace of Bruce Bird, who took the win. He went clear on that climb. Now behind, we're just watching Mr. X100. He's worked his way right up. He was right at the bottom of the race, but already closed down a whole load of places. It looks like he's moved up 12 places. By the time we've hit sprint number 4, so that pressure is coming from behind. Meanwhile, Bruce Bird, left-hand side of your screen, just coming and closing down. He saw the danger from Phil Graves. He's gone on to his heels. You can see the gap has opened up. Popovich and Ferry are with them. And the man who's being distanced here, I think we are going to see, is going to be Osborne, who is currently lost a little bit of ground going through there. So Osborne at the moment just in with Ferry and Popovich. But the timer through there, Bruce Bird's time, he closed 5 seconds out on the time of there as they went through, and that is because he was chasing that gap down. So through the tunnels go group number 1, left-hand side of your screen. On the right-hand side of your screen, you can see Mr. X100 really continuing to push, still holding a massive number of watts out here, sitting around that 400 watts mark of 5.5 watts per kilo. The numbers in black mean it's all his own effort. He's not able to slipstream. There's nobody going as fast as he is on this sector of the course. What he needs to do is get up to the riders who he would normally be racing with, right up at the front of the race, and he's working hard to do that. So Mr. X100 closing down, currently made the most positions through the race field as he continues to push into that sector. The guys at the front are working hard, but you can see at the moment that position, look, that he's gone up to 59th now out of 77. They started right at the back of the field, and they are absolutely hammering. They've got to close that gap down. This is about minimizing this. This is about supporting that team. So as they go through, you can see that time. Now, the 5 leaders have gone through with a 121. Mr. X100 has dropped into 6th place. In terms of that segment, he's only a few seconds off. But remember, that leading group, they had help. So they were able to work together going through there. Bruce Bird closing down on our race leader. And I think that group now is continuing to split. We'll be back with them shortly. So they are continuing to split. That group is now 2 groups. We've got Graves and Bird, leaders in positions 1 and 2. Then you've got Popovich, the teammate of Mr. X100, and SS further back with Jason Osborne, with Mitch Ferry, all trying to chase down. And Graves and Bird between them are wanting to open this gap. They know trouble is coming behind. At the moment, SS up. He's moving up through that field. But Graves and Bird on your screen at the moment. This duo have got a gap. Let's look behind them. Can we see the riders? We're going to need a telescope to see them behind at the moment. I think they're a long, long way back. It's going to be some serious viewing to try and catch them. Can't see them. Still nothing. Graves and Bird are absolutely mullering the way along here. They are flying. This is an incredible round at the moment because they've opened the gap on Popovich, Ferry, and Osborne, all of which are absolute close riders. Remember, anybody wearing that yellow jersey, they are a Category 1 rider. They sit at the top of the standings. They are the riders deemed to be right at the top of their game. Category 2. Next category down, they're the categories that are pushing up that are going to try and get in there, but there will be a gap between 1 and 2 in terms of what is put out. The categories vary each race. At the moment, you can see these dynamic categories that are really responsive to riders' performances, that are showing the differences. And I think we just seen the riders showing why there is such a difference because of that amount of power. So we are moving our way along. Remember, 45 kilometers in distance to cover. All of the big climbs coming at the back end of the course in that final 9K as you go up on to the summit. And that final climb really is brutal indeed, with lots of really steep steps and flatter sections. So it really does deceive when we've got to climb up to the 737 meters. It doesn't seem too much. It is, because it's all in steep steps. It's not like a nice gradual ramp that the riders are going to ride up. So our leaders at 19K at the moment. They're not far away from half race distance here on MyWhoosh, live on the MyWhoosh YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, give it a click, and be notified every time we go live with the Sunday Race Club with myself, Matt Payne. MyWhoosh, of course, bringing you all of this racing, this platform really built around giving us accurate, fast racing, of giving us great results that are verified, that are checked, that we know are absolutely spot on. And Bruce Bird has shown time and time again why he seems to be the rider to be on the offensive. He puts the power down and everybody's left in his wake. That happened last week. Remember, this is your winner from last week. He was a rider who could push up over the top. Nobody could catch him as they came into the line. Graves, so having a better ride this week. Phil Graves, last time out for the Yorkshire Pudding Express, came in a second position, but he'd given away time to Bird. The 1-2 of last week, the 1-2 this week, they're showing they're the riders to beat behind. That gap is not opened out to something that can't be caught back. 31 seconds back to the chasers at the moment. So half a minute between the leaders who are about to make their way into our next sector here. This will give us a good indication of who's travelling fastest. Bird and Grace should certainly be the riders who are doing so. Just drop a little bit further down the course. You see our mix of riders. Right hand side of your screen, you can see the yellow jersey in there. That's our Category 1 rider. We've got our Category 2 riders in the green, our Category 3 riders in the blue. Gives you a real good indication of who's having a great day out at the moment in the race here on MyWhoosh, and who's maybe not doing as well as they would have expected at the moment. Just watching Burke Gavin at the moment, just dropping into the draft. The numbers going green, top left-hand side of your screen, now dropping to black. It pushes up towards the front. And just like in real life, in a road race, you get exactly the same in the cycling discipline, because if you are out there on a road and you are really sat behind somebody, it's exactly the same when you're sat behind somebody on MyWhoosh. You get that drafted. You don't have to work as hard to hold position. You're not having to put as many watts out, and that means that you're going to rest, and all of these rests will count. At the moment, these riders on a real false flat, this sector, and you can see the difference here. Group we're watching on the right-hand side of the screen at 17k, the group on your left-hand side of your screen at 21k, so 4 kilometers separating these riders. That is where we're seeing the difference between first place and 40th. And in fact, in this group, it's about halfway through that race field on the right-hand side. But this sector, really, really flat, fast sector as they come in. The second group are about to hit a little bit of a rise, a kicker, to drop back down at about 18.2k. So there's about a K coming into the end of the valley. Bruce Bird, your leaders on the screen at the moment, with Phil Graves now at 40 seconds to those chasers. Popovich, Osborne, along with Ferry, just trying to push. Keller and Pirot still chasing, but they're now at 2 minutes nearly behind these two race leaders. So Bruce Bird for the draft squad leading this out. They've no Bushmiller, remember, he was 9th last time. They've got Ross Fawcett in here, but Bird realistically at the front on his own. He's going to be adding points in. He's pushing away. Graves, though, the Yorkshire Pudding Express, remember, absolutely flying. But his teammates are not able to match the performance that came out from the UAE Clan team. You remember the UAE Clan team leading the race home in terms of teams on our last race. And Mr. X100, the rider on the right-hand side of your screen, was their leading rider. He was in 3rd place. He was really on the heels of Bird and Graves, and he was a little bit further back to drop down to SS for the UAE Clan team. Their third counter was Popovich, who's right up in the second chasing group on the road at the moment. But Mr. X100 now, how's that progress going? 61st rider currently, and he's 51st or 61st. Just going to double check as we look at those screens. Absolutely flying. Going to get another couple of riders to pass as he goes in and through. So just taking a look, we've got our leaders currently sitting at 22.5 kilometers in, and you can see that chase behind now. 69th at the moment for Natalie on the right of your screen. Just disappears as Bird puts another push in here. 5.5 watts per kilo. SS chasing hard behind him, trying to close that gap down. He's got another rider in his sights, continues to squeeze, but they are currently sitting at SS, currently 7k behind our leaders, Bird and Grace, these world-class riders. Absolutely starting to demolish the competition. They really are putting the pressure on now. Now, as we come in to the next section, it is going to be tough stuff. They are currently sitting at 23K. And that means that we've got another slight rise to come, because this is one of our hilly sections going to be coming up. It's falls flat and then it kicks again. And this sector that will eventually run us down into the final climb ends at about 27K. So you've got a slight rise and fall for our leaders until they hit that 27K marker, another 4K or so. Group number 2, working hard. Sayed Safrazad working with Ollie Jones, with Broom, with Mendel, currently trying to push this on, trying to get this group down. They are currently in group number 3. They've got group 2 just in front, which is the group of Osborne, Popovich, and Ferry. Group number 3, the chasers behind, but Graves again, 5.6 watts per kilo. You can just see Bird tucks in behind him. Both riders on a very similar bikes, but you can see Graves on the Colnago. He's got the deeper wheels on here. Bruce Bird has gone for the MyWhoosh Aero frame, the bigger frame, but has got the lighter wheels on, and that will make a difference when you come onto the climb, because obviously, just like you would find on the road, when you go into a climb, the lower the mass, the better it is. When you're on the fast flat sections, having more aerodynamic equipment makes a difference. You're pushing less watts out to cover the same speed. So this is going to be a really close between these two. Slight differences in kit, very similar. The gap between them when we got to the top of the Jebel Hafit last time, at the top of that climb, they were separated by 6 seconds on the road. And a further 12 seconds back to Mr. X100. Popovich for the UAE clan team, the leading team, looking to close down Graves, but Graves is sitting with Bird, the rider who is third place, Mr. X100, now kicking on to this next section to climb, 18K in. And this little riser that's coming up, you can just see it in front of him. Doesn't look huge, but it's enough to make your legs up hurt, that is for sure. Mr. X100 at the moment, powering his way up here. Again, still huge numbers. We're seeing 5 to 5.8 watts per kilo, and this little riser, 0.7 0.8 just kicking in, heading in towards that 1%. It feels like a mountain when you've been sat rolling and really powering along on the flat and you're on your limit. This is where you've got to be able to dig deep, and look at that heart rate, 156 as he keeps on pushing his way in and through. This really is tough stuff. Meanwhile, Graves is working to try and hold off that chase behind. So a real story. And this is what we love about MyWhoosh. We love about racing. The e-sport cycling discipline, one where you can race against people all out and around the world. You can see people racing from a multitude of countries, and they're up against each other on the start line, heading away. Some riders get a great start. Grace Bird absolutely flying, had a fantastic start. Can they hold off the chase behind Popovich, Osborne, and Ferry? Well, they've got that gap back to a 1 minute and 5. They stretched out almost to nearly 2. It's gone back down to a minute. So at the moment, Popovich, Osborne, and Ferry are working well together in 3rd, 4th, and 5th places. Now, the rider who is third, and these are your top 3 from last week on your screen. Bird and Graves on your left-hand screen, Mr. X100 on the right-hand screen. That gap currently sits, it's currently sitting, was going to be about 6.6K between the riders, and that is because Mr. X100 having to chase from the back, putting a massive amount of power down just to try and get with these riders who got that great start because they didn't have any issues on that line. And this is exactly what happens. We see riders on start lines, whether it's a time trial, whether it is making your way to the start, getting delayed by traffic. All these things happen when you're out and racing on road racing. I've been on track races where the start gates haven't opened, and that's when all of a sudden you are left having to pick up the pieces. And this shows where your character is. Do you just give up? No. You put your foot down, you chase on, and that's what we're having, and that's what we're seeing. And we're seeing that throughout all these groups, people racing against each each other, seeing if they can beat the people they were against last time out. Steve Small doing a great ride here, right-hand side of your screen, working hard, sat in with that group at the moment. So at the moment, Small keeping the power down, trying to keep that group working together to close the gap. Meanwhile, Bird now at 26.6k on this downhill dip at the moment. So these are roller coasters definitely really testing these riders, even though they don't appear huge on the screen, just like in real life. You could be going up the biggest climb, you could be going up an Alp, and it's going to look like nothing on the screens. When you do it in real life, you know it's going to be tearing your legs apart, and these guys doing an amazing job at the moment. All of our riders all the way through this race field working hard to keep that pace high. They know at the end of the ride they're going to come into that final climb, and we can see huge time gains. We can see big gains and big losses. If you want to see what we mean, make sure you go back on to the MyWhoosh YouTube channel. You'll see just how it played out last time around. Last week's coverage of the men's and women's races, absolute joy to put words to the action to, because it was so frantic. And that last climb, the culmination, that finale, we saw positions change. We saw great teamwork from the UAE clan team, and Mr. X100 looking to close these gaps down. Pablo Popovic's teammate is in third place in the ride at the moment. Overall, he's chasing on behind. Now it's a 54th place. He's got 20 places back now from that starting position. Starting at the back of the race field, powering his way up to the front. Meanwhile, Graves and Bird, well, they don't need to worry about that. All they want to do is keep off the chaser behind, because Mr. X100 here powering his way through. Just gone past Ross Fawcett by the look of it. He's got 48 seconds in him again. He's chasing after Montanoli. He's got Uribe and Tomeo in front, and he knows that he's got to keep on pushing as he goes up on to this climb here. And you can just see this a little bit of a drag here. It's enough to get that power down. Big numbers coming out once again here, well over that 400 watt marker. So we're going up into that 5 watts per kilo. Really is continuing to kick on, and there's a good group in front here now. This is going to help. Oh, look at this. This is what we want to see. That gap's coming down now. Question is he going to rest, take some recovery, and then kick again? So Mr. X100 trying to close that gap down. Now, this is really where the tactics have to play in. If you've been absolutely on the limit, do you keep that rhythm going? Do you keep that power going down? Or do you back off a little bit, just have a little bit of a rest, sat in the riders, take advantage of that draft, wait, gather it, get a little micro rest, and then push on again? Or do you use the drafting to the effect of sitting alongside him? Well, look at this. He's absolutely motoring his way through. I think he's left him like a rocket on takeoff at the moment. So there's no rest there. There was no hesitation. Straight in and past them. So Mr. X100 putting the gap in, and look at the distance that's opened up. And that's where it's tactical. That's where you've got to work out. Have you got the strength and the power? Clearly feeling confident. He's motored his way up now into 45th place out of 77 on that start line, making the way off from that line. We're seeing riders drop out, not finish at the moment. There's no danger of that. Next rider in his sights is Romero. So the chase is on behind. He's got distance to make up, though, on the riders. This is group one that we're seeing on our screen. This is Bird and Graves at the moment, and you can just see they're being chased by Ferry, Osborne, Popovic. They are at 1 minute 30 on our race leaders, Graves and Bird. They're at 28.2k, and this is Mr. X100's teammate Popovic, along with Osborne and Ferry. So Mitch Ferry riding really strongly here today. Certainly it looks to me like he's got the bit between his teeth. And the interesting thing, he's a Yorkshire Pudding Express rider. So he is the teammate of Phil Graves in front. Osborne, well, he is working hard at the moment. But can Osborne help close the gap down on the leaders? He's got nobody in front. Bruce Bird, his only teammate, Ross Fawcett, further back down the race. So Bird just racing for himself in those individual standings. Remember, the riders are looking to take away the honours here, putting a great race performance at the moment. The chase is on behind Osborne. We're just riding in with him. You can just see the push coming. So a little bit further back, just over 1 kilometre back, it's a run. This is a Group number 3 on the road. So this has got Jones in there and co. They want to close that gap down. Jones, our winner last time on this course, as we come in and through, hitting the 29-kilometre marker. We're in with Pablo Popovic, the UAE clan rider, looking to close that gap down on Mitch Ferry. Ferry working hard here because we've got his teammate up the road here. So Osborne, Popovic and Ferry working. Ferry at the moment has opened a little bit of a gap here, and Popovic and Osborne can't be caught napping. They're going to want to close that gap down. Mitch Ferry doing a great ride here. You can see that time from Graves, his teammate of Mitch Ferry, leading the standings, going in and through, nothing between them though, and Ferry is pushing hard here. You can just see he's got about 0.07 of a watt per kilo as he moves his way in and through. So this is really tough stuff out on the course. Now Popovic and Osborne come. Popovic bridges across. Osborne's got to respond to this. It's 5.9 coming out from Pablo Popovic, the UAE clan team. Now Osborne responds, 7 watts per kilo. We're with Osborne now. He's got to get back on these. He cannot let this gap go. If he lets this gap go, he's in trouble. Once you're out of that draft, you're in trouble. You can see his numbers, top left-hand side, in black, 300, 400 watts coming out nearly here. He's still fighting to get into the draft. You'll know when he does it, those numbers will go green. That's what he's watching for, top left-hand side of your screen. He needs to sit in that draft. He's got to make it. And if we go over the top, our camera for shortening it, now you've got to get tucked in there. Now Osborne kicks in. They go in and through the line. This group should regroup. The time checks. Here they come. It is Ferry. Sat in 4th place. The Yorkshire Pudding Express, a rider, teammate of Graves going through. So at the moment, Pudding Express with 1st and 4th places in terms of that sprint. And this is reflective of the overall positions as well at the moment, with Graves and Bird clear of Popovic, Ferry and Osborne. Well, interesting another thing on that screen. If you look to the right-hand screen, there are big gaps as well between the first two, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th places as Graves is pushing here. He's got Bruce Bird about 1 second behind according to the clock. So that means that gap has opened up. If we get a chance to look back, we're going to be able to see what that gap is. At the moment, though, there's some serious numbers coming out. 400 watts here, 5 watts per kilo. But here comes Bird. He's right on his heels. There's no messing about. Let's compare that back to the rider who was 3rd behind these two only a week ago. These riders racing week in, week out. Mr. X100, he's motoring his way up. It's a 44. So the next riders are just in front. They're only a matter of about 16, 17 seconds. He's doing almost double the watts per kilo. He's really is flying his way up, chasing our race winner from last time, Bruce Bird. Phil Graves, 2nd place. We're riding in with Graves at the moment, and look at the difference in numbers. Graves are getting the ability to sit in the draft. Now, you can see the difference in these in the power at the moment as they make their way up here. Phil Graves continues to sit in the wheel here of Bruce Bird. And look at the difference in the watts per kilo. Bird, 5.1 watts per kilo. Graves, 3.9 watts per kilo. That's the difference sitting in the draft. It's slightly downhill. We're doing 44 kph, so we have 25 miles per hour. We're 45, nearly quarters of an hour into the racing. We're at 32.6k. And Bruce Bird, last week's winner of qualifier number 1. Graves, 2nd in qualifier number 1, are clear. The chasing riders behind, well, it is the rider from last time who was in 3rd place, Mr. X100's teammate Pablo Popovic, who is chasing. But as they start to make their way into our next sector, you can just see at 32.9k. These are riders coming in now. This sector is definitely going to be interesting as we come in now, because the King of the Mountain sector, it kicks in very early. It comes in at 33k and it goes to 43k. The last two are much the same, but when you go into sector 7, the key thing with sector 7, we've still got 2.6k from here to the start of the climb when we take the right hand turn and go up onto those really steep ramps. So at the moment, Bruce Bird and Phil Graves have still got another 2.5k till they hit the climb, and this is going to be really good. It's almost like a mini course. Is a sector 7, or a great little sector, because it gives us this indication of who's riding well across everything. But once we got onto that last climb, will Bird be able to ride clear of Graves? Can we see a massive chase back from the riders behind who are working the way up and through? You can just see Tom Harvey at the moment on a fantastic ride. This group contains so many of our second category riders, or our Cat 2 riders. It's going to be a fantastic fight as they come up onto the climb. Whatever your ability, however fast you race, whatever your FTP is, these categories, they're dynamic. They respond to the riders in the race. So there's always someone to race against. It's not just these old fixed categories where things just stayed that way till you got points on your license, or whether you can put out a set FTP. The categories are based on a number of things that are analysed all the way through, from everything from sprint power, past performances, health, checked out. That's what we want to see. That reactive category allows these riders to have a really interesting fight here, because we're seeing Bruce Bird pushing, leading group of 2 on the left of your screen. Group number 2 behind 3 riders. So 2 riders leading, 3 riders chasing here on qualifier number 2 on the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club. 2 out of 3 races to qualify to go into that final. Our leaders at the moment, Bird and Graves, have opened up the gap on the chasers. It's now at nearly 2 minutes. Once again, it is yo-yoing up and down, though. That has been taken back down to 1 minute 30. It's gone back out to 2 minutes. Bird and Graves, though, starting to run into the base of the mountain. So the run into the base of the climb here, 2.6K of flat from the start, which means that 35.6 are going to be hitting the climb. Now on your screens, Mr. X100, someone who we know has got the power and ability to be up with our race leaders. Chasing behind, 28K just hits his clock now, but giving away a distance, and he's closing, but can he close them right down? He's got to keep pushing here. The UAE clan team, remember, they scored. The time is taken on their riders in the team coming up on to the climb. So those riders' times are added up, and they need to get those times in there. It is taken on your top riders going through. It's your top 3 riders, and you can just see at the moment that push is really, really strong there by Mr. X100. He doesn't want to give away too much time. He's looking at Popovic, currently sitting in 3rd place. That's going to be the first counter for the UAE team. Bruce Bird's draft team don't have enough people to count, but the leaders on your left of your screen, they're coming up to the climb. You can see it coming up in front of them. Mr. X100 knows that the leaders are about to hit that. He knows this is where their speed is going to come piling off, and he's got to keep pushing now. It's a sharp right-hand turn here. This first ramp is horrible. There's no other word for it, because all of a sudden the bike goes skywards. That turbo train will clamp down. That resistance will bang in. Watch the top right-hand side of your screen. We're on 4% at the moment, or heading that way. That's nothing. It's going to be different now. Bird starts to push over the top. Graves responds at 6.5. Bruce Bird responds as well. Nothing to choose. We're still on 3%, but it's going to continue to kick as we come up here, and we're soon going to hit those steeper slopes. 12.9% is coming. We're in the red. We're at 9%, and look at the effort being put in. Watch those watts go up. This is brutal at the moment. So our riders at the moment really are pushing that number, heading skywards once again. Remember, we're at nearly 9% gradient. If you were in the Alps riding at 9%, on your home roads at 9%, and you're riding on tarmac rather than the turbo, it's going to hurt, and that's exactly what's happening to our leaders behind. Chasing group, Ferry, Popovic and Osborne, they are continuing to push. They've got a little bit further to go before they hit the start of that climb. Graves and that Bird on one of those flatter sections. It looks flatter. It's 2.9. Now we come in. This is brutal. Left-hand side of your screen. Watch those numbers. 11.6, 11.9, 12.2. It's going to be killing. Those legs are just going to feel like they're exploding. It's like somebody's thrown an anchor out, and suddenly you're having all that force against you, just like you'd find climbing the Alps, just like you'd find on a steep section. But look at the watts. Nearly 450 watts coming out there from Phil Graves, and Bruce Bird and Phil Graves are now battling it out. Mr. X100 is chasing. He's still chasing. He's down to nearly top 40. How far can he get? This is critical for that UAE clan team, the team that beat everybody else. Their time, well, it was over 11 minutes quicker last time around, and Mr. X100 has got to close that gap. He's the rider who now has got to show what that team is made of, and he's doing it in spades at the moment. Behind our leaders, a 123 back. Graves and Bird are working well. So here we go. You can just see the king of the desert goes in and through and getting an indication of those teams. You can just see Mr. X100, the third fastest rider. So this is out in the desert. This is not on the mountain. So at the moment, as we go through, Mr. X100, one of only two riders, in fact, to get within a minute of our race. Fastest time through, that's Grace and Bird go through. Then it's Mr. X100 chasing, and that's out in the desert. You see him right-hand side of your screen, left-hand side of your screen. Another of these levels. Imagine a flight of stairs going up and up and up and up, spiraling its way around those corners. That's exactly what the leaders are on at the moment. Every riser, every steep section, it's brutal, it hurts, it gives those legs an absolute pummeling. But then just as you get into a rhythm, it eases and your legs go to jelly. Go run up the stairs at home. When you go over the top, you're going to feel that suddenly turn, it levels. That's what these riders get every time they go on the flat. Then it kicks again. And this is just repeatedly just putting the hurt on. It's making it difficult. The guys are going through those gears. They're finding the lowest gear that they've got on that bike. And that's what they need as they go in behind. Popovich now onto the climb. You can just see another of these little kicks in as our leaders are at 13%. You can just see 14.9 from Popovich on the right-hand side. Evil's bit of a climb. It hurts so badly when it kicks like that. You've got to be supple. You've got to respond. Bird at the front with Graves. There are your leaders, left-hand side of the screen. The distance between these riders has come down as they've gone onto the slope. You can see at the moment that gap is less than 1,000 meters between them. It's actually about 800 meters on the ground approximately between these two sets of riders, as Popovich now on the offensive, trying to break the riders behind, trying to gap Osborne, trying to gap Ferry. At the moment, it's not happening. Chasing a group behind these, well, they're a long way back. They're going to have to keep pushing because that team competition is going to be critical to see where these riders are. Individual on as well. Will it be Bruce Bird or Philip Graves? They are going to have to blow big for Popovich to close it down, but this is not insurmountable. That gap at the moment is just about 900 meters between them. It's next to nothing, but they're on the climb, and it's going to yo-yo as these riders come through. Now Bird on the front, pushes again. Bird sits at 450 watts, but look at this. The difference in pace, it yo-yos. They come up over the top of that riser. It levels out again as we come around these turns. Long sweeping right here. It gives a little bit of respite, a little bit of a chance to take a breather. You can't relax too much, though, particularly if you're in the company of somebody of the class of the athletes racing on MyWhoosh today, because they are going to kick again now. Bird goes in. We're not seeing big numbers, but Grace goes over the top here. And up at just about 5 watts per kilo, now into the 60s. Popovich is behind. We're watching Bruce Bird and Grace really give this to everybody else. Popovich chasing a rider with Osborne by the look of it. Looks like a Ferry just starting to be distanced here. Just going to get a double check on that as we go through. Here we go. And great shot here from above with Popovich putting another dig as they go over the top of that section. You saw the gradient ease off. Popovich goes for it. Now Osborne responds to it. These two are mano a mano at the moment. They are trying to push the gap out onto Ferry. They don't want him to close that down. They'll want a top three. Who will it be? Will Popovich be able to match the third place of his UAE clan mate, the teammates in the shape of Mr. X100 from last time? Jason Osborne, though, he's not going to roll over. He's going to try and stick it to Popovich. Meanwhile, Graves and Bird really pushing here, 38.6k. Remember, this is a climb all the way to the finish at 45k. We're on a steep section, and it is unrelenting. There's nowhere to hide on this climb because it is kicker after kicker after kicker. Our leaders working well. Chasing group we just saw. continue to push the early sections of this ride all the way to that 35k marker. Just have little roller coasters in those little increases, those 4 trigger points. But these two riders have shown that they have the pace to hold it. They were 1 and 2 last time. This could be revenge time for Graves on Bird. Bird last time up this climb, well, he wasn't on the form that we saw last time out when we were on this climb. The ride up on the MyWhoosh platform, and the last time we were up here, it was the second of our qualifying races, and we saw Mr. X100 actually take third place with us in fourth place. Ollie Jones taking the win, but of the two leaders at the moment, you can see on your screen, Bird was in 8th place, so not necessarily able to handle these steep sectors as much as he could handle the long gradual climb. Popovic still working well with Osborne, with Ferry still chasing. Now they head up onto the slopes. We're with Bruce Bird and Phil Graves, the two riders so evenly matched, 39.3k on the clock. Just getting still a little bit of draft. It has less effect, just like you'd find on the track, on the road, when you are sat behind another rider. That effect is at its biggest. The faster you're going, slower you go. That's when things ease off. That is when you get less advantage, and it's about how fast can you climb. The slopes almost matched between our battle for 3rd and 4th and 1st and 2nd places. And these two riders, they are side by side on here. Bird moves up into the front. Bird with those lighter wheels. Graves with the more aerodynamic wheels that gave him a bigger advantage on the faster, flatter sections of the course behind. Osborne really starting to hand this to Popovic and the UAE clan team rider. Popovic responds. He pushes on. They've got some work to do, though, to close down. Our leaders are continuing to extend that gap. Now we go on to a slight leveling. It looks almost easier. It's not. It's an absolute false flag. It's because the steep bits are 15% or so, and we've seen 12s, 13s, 14s coming in. When we go on to an 8% or a 5%, it looks flatter. It feels flatter. It could almost feel like a downhill, but it's not. It's actually taking its toll on your legs. It's taking its toll on that effort. And this is where you've got to get those cadence right. If you look at the top left-hand side, pedal cadence at the moment, 67 revs per minute. 67 revs per minute at the moment for Graves, sitting in at that rhythm. If we look at Popovic at the moment, he's up at 85. He's currently revving his way along at the moment. Now goes on to that steeper section. We've just seen Graves drop down to 65 there on an 8% climb. Popovic, our chaser with Osborne at the moment, goes on to the front, and they are on almost identical gradient at that point, and 80 revs per minute. The heart rate, Popovic at 164. Bruce Bird, though, he's the lowest of the lot at the moment. He's 156. He's got good revs, though. He's sitting at 70, 75 optimum revs. If you're revving quite quickly, you're going to be spinning. You're going to be using your lungs more. When those revs drop down, you're then pushing with the muscles. You're using more strength, and it's going to hurt your legs more. Optimum, is it? Everything hurts. It's really that straightforward. If your legs hurt, you need to spin more. If your lungs hurt, you need to push more. And if they both hurt, you got it just about right, because that's what you need to do to be at the front of this race. And who has got that character? Who's got that in them? Who can dig deep? Bird and Graves, they are just side by side. We're at 40.2k with just under 5k to go as Graves goes up over the top in the lead. Popovic, Osborne chasing. Ferry, who we haven't seen for a little while now, distanced into 3rd place. And he's got to be careful because Pirot, Nair, Fumagalli and Co are going to be chasing well behind him. So here we go. We've dropped from group number 1 to group 2. This is Osborne and Popovic as we go on to the climb. Jason Osborne, Pablo Popovic. Osborne riding really strongly. Popovic for the clan team. The rider who was 7th last time out, with Osborne missing in action from the race. So Popovic was racing on MyWhoosh. You can see him. Make sure you go on to the MyWhoosh YouTube channel. You download. You can watch all of the action from there. Now, Ollie Jones, he is the rider who won on this climb last time we were on this self-same course. And at the moment, Ollie Jones, the rider who was 45 seconds clear of anybody else long way down those standings, and he's really having to push. He's just coming up into the top of the screens, but Graves and Bird with the lead. Popovic and Osborne chasing behind in third and fourth place. Still only 900 or so meters separating first and second place as we tick over the hour mark. So last time up here, the winning time from Jones was 1 hour, 6 minutes and 5 seconds. And what will make a big difference depends on the size of the group covering the majority of the distance. You get a big group covering that, a lot of that distance fast, it's going to make a huge difference. But with the absence of Mr. X100, with SS, two of our real power riders, they were missing from the start, and that meant that that pack didn't have that same strength in depth, and that has left things wide open, and the time will be longer today. It's bound to be longer because there wasn't a stronger group early on. This chasing group, Popovic for the UAE clan team, Osborne still continues to push. He still tries to close that gap down. Can he get the gap to something he can handle? Osborne has to work hard here. He can't afford to let this gap go. But this is going to be really tight as they go now. Osborne pushes. Popovic tries to answer. Meanwhile, Bird pushes with Graves trying to answer. Fantastic battle between them. Popovic has got to push. Here he comes. And Osborne still not like that. And here he goes. Popovic over the top of Osborne. Meanwhile, Bird and Graves are together. There is absolutely nothing to separate these riders at the moment. Well, real battles out on the course. So your two pairs of riders, left-hand side of the screen, 1 and 2 on the roads of MyWhoosh. And we can just see in a little bit more detail as we go into the tunnel at 42 kilometers. Bird and Graves together. Right-hand side of your screen, Pablo Popovic, Jason Osborne, third and fourth place on your screen. Either of these two pairs, Danish Pavlova rider Osborne are working hard. So here we go. Popovic just continues to squeeze, just tries to open out the gap here, really looking to extend his lead here as he works hard. Bird is there, nothing splitting them. Time is running out now. If you're going to make a move on this climb, you're going to make a move where it's on a steep slope, but dare anybody go hard early. Has anybody got what it takes to go quick, to go hard, and to do it before the last ramp? Has anybody got the bottle? Can anybody do that? Bird and Graves there equally matched. Now Graves just gone over the top there at 6 watts per kilo, but he eases straight off again, and you can just see the yo-yo in between these riders. There's nothing in between them. Popovic and Osborne again are looking like they're still reasonably close. Just going to watch those time checks coming through. But at the moment, and the lead, this is now coming in. We remember finish at 45k at the very top of this slope. We're coming up to the end of the segment. This is the end of segment number 7. So this segment 7 is a 10. Sorry, yep, 10k segment. So 10k segment for segment 7. And this will give us our first indication of what kind of time our race leaders are setting up there. And if we see these two drop down when Popovic and Osborne come through, we know that they're closing. If the gap opens up and they stay at the front, watch out there for Mr. X100 closing in from behind, but it'll be a little while before he gets there. That he'll be looking to set fastest times to salvage something from that bad start from today. Bird, Graves really worked hard up there. You can see nothing to choose between them. But interestingly, Bruce Bird having to put out the higher watts per kilo and the higher watts behind Osborne and Popovic. Just a slight gap between them here as they go through the tunnels. They're a little bit further down at 42.4, so 1 kilometre separating first and second groups on the road, the first and second pairs on the road. And at the moment, Bruce Bird and Philip Graves have the gap on Popovic and Osborne, who are back together once again. They're exchanging places. They're trading, and no one knows who is going to go, who is feeling strongest, that everyone will feel they're right on the limit. If anybody feels like they've been saving anything, then that's got to be good. They've got to be feeling like they can do something, but they've got to get the timing right. If you go too early, you go into the red and you blow, you will lose masses of time. You can lose minutes and minutes in hundreds of meters on a climb like this. We see it time and time again, whether it's in the Tour de France, whether it's in the Giro, whether it's out on the roads of the UAE or for the UAE Tour, which was fantastic to watch. If you haven't seen that, make sure you watch some of the coverage from of that back. Amazing race this year with not just amazing scenery, but incredible racing as well. And those gaps opening on the final climb are really interesting to watch that as you go into those later stages. Now, here come the time gaps, 4 seconds slower. So Bird and Graves losing time to Osborne and Popovic, but they only lost 4 seconds in 10 kilometers, and it shows you just how hard that battle is. So Osborne and Popovic, the riders up there with Bird and Graves, nothing to choose between them in terms of their times through that sector. And to be honest, let's see if that continues to stay like that, because I think we're going to see that change as we see Mr. X100 come in now, heading in towards the last sectors here. Left-hand side of your screen there, your race leaders, they're on 500 meters to go. It's a horrible 500 meters though, because you've got to kick up. The banner is up over in the distance. The left-hand side of that screen gives us the run into the finish there. Your race leaders, here they come. This is going to be the fight for first and second. Nothing to choose between them. 400 meters turns to 300 meters. And now the kick comes from Bird. Graves goes over the top. Graves is at 11.8 watts per kilo here on MyWhoosh. Qualification race number 2. He's going to go to Philip Graves. He was second last time. He's going to take top spot. Revenge is sweet. He gets it on Bruce Bird, who is going to take that second place. Bird is coming, but he's not going to have the pace as Graves comes through. Your race winner is Philip Graves. It's Bruce Bird taking second place. What a finish. These are the final slopes now. 1 and 2. The Yorkshire Pudding Express rider, it is Graves taking the win from Bruce Bird. But watch what's happening behind. Popovic and Osborne are going to be chasing here. And Popovic and Osborne, this is going to be for 3rd and 4th position. Can they get themselves in touch? They're on to the final slopes here. Popovic has got to kick. He has to try and get this time as slow as he can. His teammates had problems at the start. They're closing in. Mr. X100 and SS are trying to close that gap down to minimize their time losses in this race to see whether they can hold on to being the top team in the race. But Osborne is pushing. Jason Osborne has got Popovic with him. Now who's got the kick? Osborne is pushing. Popovic has got to respond. They've got to move now. They can't afford to wait any longer. The time for dress rehearsals has gone. So we see Osborne and Popovic coming up here. This is going to be a real battle as they come into the finish here. Nothing to choose between them. Who has got anything left in the legs? Who wants this the most? Will it be the UAE clan rider who's going to lead their team home? Pablo Popovic. Is it going to be Osborne? Well, Osborne's got the gap and Popovic is trying to respond, but I don't think he's got it in his legs. Welcome back, Jason Osborne, back onto the racing on MyWhoosh. He was missing last week. He comes back. It's going to be a 3rd place here. Jason Osborne absolutely showing why the Danish Pavlova team are such a strong squad. They took the win here last time in Jones. This time around, it's going to be a 3rd place as Osborne comes up to the line. So the positions decided for our top 3 riders, with Philip Graves taking the win here at qualification round number 2. Bruce Bird taking second, and the rider coming through the line is Jason Osborne taking 3rd place. Pablo Popovic will take the first rider from the UAE clan team, but he will be 4th place here. It's no podium as we see their longtime companion, the man who's in that initial quintet of riders coming up, Mitch Ferry, making his way up the slopes here. So your top 5 in with Graves, 3.7 seconds clear of Bruce Bird, overturning the win of Bird last time around. In third place, Jason Osborne coming in at 2 minutes and 3 down on our race winner, with the UAE Clan team rider Pablo Popovic coming in fourth position. Fifth place is going to be rounded out by Mitch Ferry, who is sprinting in to the line. He's going to get a top 5 here at the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club qualification race number 2. And a great result. He goes through the top of the climb and just that run in to the finish line. This little, it looks flat. It's not. It's still at 1.5%, which is enough to really test your legs. So it is going to be Mitch Ferry comes in, almost caught by Joe Pirot. Ferry doing enough to keep that top 5 place, but Pirot's going to put in a great performance here. He's going to come through and he is going to take a 6th place here. He closed right down there, and that's a great result. The Airbus Lecole rider Joe Pirot comes through, takes 6th place, and the team standings are going to be really tight as our riders compiling it on through here. So our next PB insured rider is going to be our next rider in, that's Zach Nair. So Nair showing he's on good form at the moment. We're looking though to see where Fumagalli will come in. Key teams for that team competition. Yorkshire Pudding Express have 2 riders in and home already, with Ferry and Graves. The Clan team have 1. Draft have Bird, but they can't qualify for the teams. Next up is going to be Fumagalli. He's racing in for the Italy, powered by Colnago Team A. So good to have the Italy powered by Colnago team on board. Colnago, of course, the bike suppliers of the UAE team, the Emirates team, who were racing strongly all classic season and early season stage races. Riding Colnago and Fumagalli are coming in here. So David Fumagalli comes through. Great result. He comes through a fast finishing time there. We'll see whether he actually manages to keep hold of the fast times up the slope, and will he be able to lead home a faster team. So at the moment, in the individual results, it's Graves, Bird, Osborne, Popovic, Ferry, Pirot, Nair, and Fumagalli. It's going to be 9th place here as he comes in and across the line for our next rider. I think it's going to be Olivier Simons. So Simons makes his way through. Good ride by him. Last time we were up onto the top of the climb, it was Ollie Jones who took the win. Jones now makes his way in towards that finish, those last few hundred meters. Jones is going to be the next counting rider for the Pavlova squad. So the Danish Pavlova squad with Osborne in 3rd place are going to score another rider in the top 10. So some great racing. These are your top 10. 10th place for Ollie Jones. 9th place, Olivier Simons. 8th place, David Fumagalli. 7th place, Zach Nair. 6th place, Joe Pirot. 5th place, Mitch Ferry. 4th place for Pablo Popovic. 3rd place for Jason Osborne. 2nd place for last week's winner, Bruce Bird. And top spot, Yorkshire Pudding Express's Philip Graves, your race winner in race number 2 of 3 qualifying races for the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club. Great racing from all our riders. We await to see where our riders will all finish up. Don't forget, of course, all these results are subject to verification. The performance data analysis will begin when our riders are finished. It starts before they even get onto the start line, as our riders are checked to make sure that all of the results are right, that there's no technical anomalies that are going to eliminate them out of the standings. Once that's done, then the results will change from unofficial to official on the race results page on the MyWhoosh website. As we see the rest of our riders steadily making their way up here. They've got to get themselves in. Our category 1 riders all coming in thick and fast. Don't forget, behind, massive chase on behind coming from Mr. X100 from SS. And one of the real stories of the day, the UAE Clan team are going to have their work cut out in that team standing to retain that team top spot that they took in qualification number 1 And that is because clearly issues for them on the way through. But we will see how they get on. A little bit further down, Vidal Mail on his way up here. And looks like Vidal working his way up those slopes into the last few hundred meters, though. So currently inside that last kilometre. Looks like Daruz, who rose strongly last time, a little further down. Hamid Casino are working strongly in the Category 2. Ross Fawcett, teammate of Bird, a little bit further back. And as you can see, riders scattered all the way through. And we'll steadily try and work our way back through here by the look of it to try and pick up where those chasers were. Badu on his way up here, riding really well here. The Category 3 rider looking very smooth. Nice cadence there, 88 res per minute, cadence of 88, nice and speedy. You can see Vidal doing about the same, actually, left-hand side of your screen. Smooth cadence. Keeps it in the aerobic zone, keeps you working on the aerobic area rather than just going anaerobic and blowing your legs to pieces and just getting a whole load of lactic acid. So lots of stories of some of our real big hitters not getting the start that they wanted here on qualification race number 2. And that is shown by the results. However, some amazing racing and a real set of duels up at the front of the race. A little bit further back, some fantastic battles. Really loving the battle on the right-hand side of your screen here. Our Category 2 riders working hard for the line, and they can't afford to relax because they will all want to take those top spots. They'll want to put in a really good performance here at the race. This competitive spirit that's fulfilled by racing on MyWhoosh. Well, the man who's going to be able to put his feet up and know he's done everything. Vidal goes in through the line, being chased to the line here. So Badu Yusuf going in over the top of the last steep section. It eases a little bit here before the kick through the summit, finishing into the line. You can just see those numbers just dropping down to grade behind. This fight is incredible because this is a real battle, and this, I think, is going to be for our first second cat rider coming up to the line, right-hand side of your screen. So what we love, one of the great things about MyWhoosh, if you are racing, there's always somebody to race. You can be at the front of your category, and the dynamic categories really show that. So Yusuf in through the line, left-hand side, right-hand side. Cristiano kind of currently trying to stick it to the rest of this pack of Category 2 riders. There are 4 riders, if not 5 here. They come 5 riders in this battle. Who is going to take away top spot? Well, they've got very little distance left to do. They're into that last kilometre. Who will take away the first of our second category riders? Great riding by all of these riders, but it is going to come down to who's got something left in the legs. Time is ticking away. We're now into less than 800 meters to go. Remember, we've got one more kick in and up, then it levels again. And this group really have their work cut out. They will want to take this. Who's going to get those bragging rights? As we see Keller coming in through the line. So Keller comes in and through. So Keller taking 15th place as he went in and through the line. Clark in 14th, Yusuf in 13th, Mer in 12th, Brunt in 11th. Our riders continue to push here as they make the way up the climb. The gap has gone, though, slightly in front. We can just see one rider cresting the top of this slight rise, and it is going to be Maglio who has timed this right at the moment. He's got the gap. The chase is on behind. So these 5 chasers are chasing Maglio. Maglio potentially going to beat the first of our second category. We've got Darus and Odlin due to come in and through. And Darus has come through in 16th, Odlin in 17th. It's going to be an 18th place, but it's going to be the first of our second category riders. Christian Maglio is going to come in. He is going to be the first of our second category riders as he comes in and through the line. Great riding by Maglio. The chase is on behind, so Maglio goes in and through, and he is going to be our next rider to take the spot. So look at that. Maglio takes it for the Italy Power Bike on Nargo Team B with the fellow racers. Mr. G second place in Category 2. X-Pro with the 2 riders together. Kenup and Harvey going through, followed by Abu Dhabi by Francis Pino. And then Italy Power Bike Colnago's Team B. Kagigua is going to be the rider coming through 23rd place. What a fantastic fight in category 2 there as well. That is great to see, and that is what we want to see when these riders are racing out there and battling away all the way through this race field. Now, Londano is going to be the next rider in. Going to be the next rider coming through. Currently going to be coming in inside the top 25 at the moment. You see our riders having done the circuit and heading back down on MyWhoosh like you're doing if you're out and riding up a big mountain out in the Alps, or you're riding in my home area of the Peak District. If you go to the top of the big hill, never stop at the top. Always make sure you get the downhill back in, and that's really key. The warm down is critical for these riders because they're going to want to perform next week. Remember, we have qualifying race number 3 next week. That is going to be live on the MyWhoosh YouTube channel. Now, don't forget, all of the action will be out there. We're going to get you all of the results up onto the results pages. Just go to mywhoosh.com and click onto race results. The results unofficial until they're all verified. And of course, the MyWhoosh platform having that dynamic responsive category system means that we also make sure we have a dynamic responsive and very, very tight system on making sure that all of our riders' results are absolutely spot on. So it looks like Van He on the right-hand side of your screen, working his way up this climb. David Milano just trying to close down on Valencia on the left-hand side of your screen. So these riders know they've been in a real battle today. Looks like Miller at the moment with Wolf in front. Miller just going past that Colnago sign as we could just see Balthazar on the lower slopes here. So Matthias Van He continues to push. It goes over that little rise. It eases a little here. It doesn't actually go downhill. It looks like it does. It feels like it does, but it is still slightly uphill. Vargas behind, going to be coming in as our next category 2 rider. So Londano taking 24th place. It's going to be a 25th spot, I think, for our next rider home. And that's going to be Vargas. So Vargas is going to round out, 26th for Vargas. So Van He goes into 25th place. Vargas taking 26th. Tim Cutler just in a real fight here. Another rider just in front, and everybody knows if you can just squeeze that last little bit out, you could take a place on the way through. So Tim Cutler has got Sonnenfeld now. Is Sonnenfeld aware of the threat behind? He's got the rider coming up behind him. Can Cutler sprint him? Can he take him on this last run to the line? Oh, it's going to get close here. Cutler's got 7 watts per kilo coming out. Sonnenfeld's responding at 5.4. The right-hand side of your screen is going to be very close indeed here as it comes to the line. Oh, Cutler's just going to roll him as he comes through. Sonnenfeld tried to respond to it. And there's some seriously tired legs there. Look at those numbers drop down. Everybody giving everything on that final kick in and through here on MyWhoosh. So our riders continue to make the way in to the finish. Please make sure you catch up with those results. We'll be back very, very shortly with our women's race here on the MyWhoosh race channel. If you want to have a ride, make sure you download the app, the racing today, all part of the race program on MyWhoosh. You can find all of the details on mywhoosh.com. So from me, Matt Payne, and everybody at MyWhoosh, thank you for watching. Shukam, alakir.